This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
This is A Different Perspective with Kevin Randle. A retired U.S. Lieutenant Colonel, Kevin Randle has been studying UFOs for nearly 50 years. Kevin has investigated some of the most famous UFO cases in the world and has been consulted for dozens of documentaries about UFOs. Considered one of the leading experts into the Roswell UFO crash of 1947, Kevin has written more than 25 books about UFOs, including the recently published Roswell in the 21st Century. Now, here is the host of A Different Perspective, Kevin Randle.
And welcome to another exciting episode of A Different Perspective. We will be talking with Robert Powell today. And what I understand is Robert Powell is a co-author with Michael Swords of the 2010 book, UFOs and the Government, Historical Inquiry. He holds a BS in chemistry. He is also one of the two authors of the detailed radar witness reports out of Stephenville, Texas, back in 2008, the Stephenville Lights, which was quite the big case at that time. He's worked in engineering management in the semiconductor industry for 28 years. He assisted Advanced Micro Devices development of its first flash memory technology that is used in many of today's electronic devices, including the flash cards for your cameras, your PCs, and the video cameras as well. He managed the state-of-the-art chemistry laboratory and is a research and development group that worked on nanotechnology and is a co-holder of 4 patents related to that nanotechnology. He is the director of research for MUFON and assisted in establishing and developing MUFON Science Review Board. He completed over 120 investigations and is a MUFON Star member. Robert Powell, welcome to A Different Perspective.
Well, hi, Kevin. Thanks.
I think I got all that right, even though I kind of messed up a little bit of the discussion there.
Yes, you did. You got it all correct.
Okay. I thought what we would do is, I know you wanted to talk about specifically the best UFO cases from 2015, 2016, which is part of your presentation that you're going to make at the MUFON conference. But I thought we'd take a couple of minutes and talk about your work with Dr. Swords, UFOs and the Government, Historical Inquiry. And what I wanted to ask first, and is a very, very open-ended question, is what conclusions did you draw at the end of the book after having looked at all the documentation and all the evidence that you had an opportunity to examine about the government and UFOs?
Well, let me start off by saying it actually took us 5 years to write that book from when we started. And the book was written by a group of 6 to 7 individuals, Mike Swords and myself. Our names show up first on the book, but also Richard Thiem, Barry Greenwood, Jan Aldrich, and several foreign writers also participated. The conclusion, after all of that research, I don't think it's black and white, and if you ask each author this question, you would probably get a slightly different answer. But I'll give you my conclusion, and I see the world in shades of gray. Nothing's pure black and white to me, so I can always, change my view on things. But my view is that there is no government agency that exists today that is cognizant of everything that happened with the UFO phenomenon from World War II until modern times. And that doesn't mean that there has not been agencies involved, and there may be agencies still involved to this day. But I don't think there's a contiguous stream of information and knowledge from the beginning of time to the current period of time. So that's kind of my view of where government stands in the UFO phenomenon.
So you're suggesting there has been government involvement, obviously, from Project Blue Book on, but you're suggesting that there may not be one agency that was involved from the very beginning.
Right, and there doesn't seem to be anyone who really has a grasp on the UFO phenomenon as far as I can tell.
Okay, we're going to have to take a quick break already, believe it or not. So we will do that. I'm with Robert Powell, who is one of the many authors of UFOs and Government, a historical inquiry. And when we get back, what we'll be doing is we'll be talking about a little bit more about that, and then moving on into the UFO sightings from 2015 and 2016. For those of you interested in gathering more information about the UFO phenomenon, paranormal phenomenon, you might want to take a look at my blog, A Different Perspective, which covers a lot of the material that we will discuss during various programs here. And I have just published a book called Roswell in the 21st Century, which deals with the case from what I think of as being a fairly dispassionate examination of all the evidence that has been gathered by so many researchers over the last 25 and 30 years, starting with, of course, Jesse Marcel's revelations in 1976. So we will be back with Robert Powell in just a moment. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards, ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
This is the Exxon Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com.
We are back with my guest, Robert Powell, who is, believe it or not, the leader of the MUFON Science Review Board, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. We're going to go back to UFOs and Government. That's an anomalous book, anomalous publishers, available at Amazon.com, of course. Robert Powell being one of many authors that contributed to this. And before we went away, he had mentioned briefly that there was no government agency that sort of spanned the entire history of the UFO phenomenon. There's a series of different organizations. And I noticed in the book there was no mention of Project Moondust. And I thought of Moondust being a fairly significant part of the UFO phenomenon, and wondered if you had examined any documentation or anything about Project Moondust.
Well, Kevin, not myself. I have not examined Project Moondust in detail. Some of the other guys, or the other authors, such as Mike Swords and Jan Aldrich, I'm sure have, but myself, I'm not familiar with Project Moondust.
Well, the reason I brought it up is because, according to the documentation I've seen, Moondust began in 1957. It had a UFO component, which is obvious. At least 4 cases I found in the Project Blue Book files are labeled Moondust. There was a letter in the Project Blue Book files about Moondust. It was from December of 1957, mentioning that you had, not you personally, but the Project Blue Book had an opportunity to investigate these things using Project Moondust. Moondust was suggested as an organization that would look at returning space debris of foreign manufacture or unknown manufacture, clearly being UFOs, and we do know there's a UFO component. When Blue Book ended in 1969, the Moondust contingent continued on, and in 1986, I believe it was, Robert Todd received a dump of documents from the State Department which talked about Project Moondust and the UFO component. So I thought that was kind of a significant thing, because it shows that there was a government organization that we can actually prove that existed beyond the end of Project Blue Book in 1969. And I just wanted to mention that I thought it was a organization that at least should have gotten some mention there. But of course, that's my editorial opinion, which of course doesn't impact that. Other than that, I mean, the book is just a compendium of great documentation and great evidence that shows that the government took UFOs extremely seriously up through 1969, when they closed Project Blue Book, but suggested they went on beyond that. Well, now that I've had my editorial say on that, could you tell us well, moving on, of course, could you tell us a little bit about the MUFON Science Review Board? Because I know that you were a key factor in organizing that, and what its purpose is, and how it kind of operates. If we can get into that kind of quickly.
Sure. I created the Science Review Board in 2012, and my objective basically was to kind of create a stronger science arm for MUFON, and I wanted the Science Review Board to have scientists on it that had backgrounds across the various sciences, such as biology, chemistry, physics, astrophysics, etc. So I did that in 2012, and in 2013, the board of directors approved it, and that's kind of how it all got started. Now, since then, we've created what we call sub-teams underneath the Science Review Board, and those teams go off and they investigate or handle particular projects.
Now, you yourself, of course, have investigated UFO sightings as well as I guess the chief of the review board, and as your position as a MUFON member in Texas there. So you have investigated lots of different UFO sightings, as we mentioned, the Stephenville stuff.
That's correct. I've investigated a lot. The Stephenville case of 2008 is one of you get a good case about once every 5 years, it seems like, in ufology, and that was a very good case. And then in 2013, we investigated a case actually outside of MUFON for various reasons, and it was a video that we obtained from Homeland Security of an unknown object over Puerto Rico.
Well, let's first, for those that aren't really familiar with the Stephenville case, can you give me a very quick encapsulation of what that entailed? Because that also involved, I think, President Bush's, or was close to President Bush's Texas White House at the time.
Right. Basically, we had a case there where we had over 20 some odd witnesses of an event that took place over 4 hours. These witnesses were scattered across 2 counties, and they all saw this object at various points in time. Sometimes multiple witnesses saw it at a given point in time, and then other witnesses would see it an hour later, for example. So that's what we started off with. And then myself and a gentleman by the name of Glenn Schultz, who is a former Army radar basically scientist. He worked on bouncing radar beams off the moon back in the 1960s. So he basically showed me how to do radar analysis. And once someone shows you how to do it, it's not that difficult. So he and I obtained radar data from 5 different radar sites throughout Texas, and we analyzed that radar data. And so we were able to track the F-16s out of what used to be called Carswell Air Force Base out of Fort Worth. And we tracked the F-16s all the way through civilian airspace into the military operating area, and we could see them doing their military exercises. But the other thing we tracked was an unknown that we picked up at various locations, and this was based on the witness testimony, based on the time the witness saw it, the location of the witness, the direction the witness was looking, and then we would identify the radar tracks based on that.
Well, the skeptics, I know, often say that when you're talking about radar cases, there's always spurious returns on the scope. So you were able to link specific returns on the radar scopes, or the radar data that you had, to specific witnesses saying, this is what I saw at this time in this location.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, spurious radar tracks occur, but the difference is not only did we have witnesses linked to the radar tracks, but these radar tracks were traveling over an extended period of time. They were picked up by multiple radar sites. So these were not inversions in the atmosphere or anything such as that. The only explanation you might be able to come up with would be if the government was creating, there's a method where you can actually create false radar sites that the military uses in war on someone else's radar screen. So for that to have happened, the military would have had to have chosen to create spurious radar targets on multiple FAA radar sites, which is, in a civilian area. So I don't think that's very likely.
What you're saying is we'd have the capability of doing it, but it would be the military interfering with basically civilian air traffic, civilian airliner traffic, and that seemed to be an awfully dangerous thing to be doing if that's in fact what they were doing.
Right. I would not think they would do something like that.
But the important point is that you have this object, or was it multiple objects?
It was two different. We've identified clearly two different objects that occurred during that time frame. One object, the one that you mentioned, which begins up near Dublin, Texas, and it travels towards the Crawford Ranch. And it's within 8 miles of the Crawford Ranch when we ran out of radar data. We asked for 4 hours of radar data because we thought that was going to be plenty. We had no idea that there were events continuing beyond the time that the witnesses had first discussed with us.
What exactly did the witness see? I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to envision this, and I know everybody's going to want to know how did the witnesses describe the object?
Well, there's multiple witnesses here, so I could go into a lot of the different ones. I'll hit the key ones. There were a set of 4 witnesses who first saw the object, and this was just after the sun had set, and they saw 4 extremely bright lights moving at a very high rate of speed from the northeast towards their location. Then they saw the lights come to a stop and then slow down and then move to the west. And then 4 lights, which were more or less in a horizontal configuration, went into a vertical configuration. Then they saw 7 to 8 lights, and then they described it almost as like a flash of fire, and then the lights, everything disappeared. They then indicated that about 5 to 10 minutes later, 2 jet aircraft came in at low altitude, followed by the lights. So that was one of the key individuals who saw something.
Well, you said a jet aircraft, and my question would be a jet fighter aircraft?
Two jet fighter aircraft.
Were they responding to the objects, or was it kind of coincidental they happened to be there at that time?
I do not have a good answer to that, Kevin, because I went all through the radar data trying to identify those 2 particular jets. And not only could I not find them at that point in time, but I could not find 2 jets. In other words, 2 jets beyond the jets I had already monitored, right? Because we were able to monitor every jet that's in the skies at that point in time, unless they're below radar. So what we looked for was 2 jets that may have been below radar, but they would have had to come up and shown up on radar at some point in time when they returned to base.
Now, these were the jets that came out of what we all know as Carswell Air Force Base. It's now a reserve base, but they came out of Carswell Air Force Base out of Fort Worth?
Well, that we don't know on those 2 particular jets. We tracked a total of 10 jets. Those 10 jets did not include these 2. These 2 jets that the 4 witnesses indicated came at extremely low altitude and were chasing. This is what they indicated. They were chasing the UFO.
So the witnesses saw the jets basically chasing, or deduced that the jets were chasing the UFO.
Yeah, that's what they thought the jets were doing. The only possibility I could come up with to explain it, since we could not find the jets on radar, was either number one, the jets, if they were out of Carswell, they left Carswell and remained below radar. So
Well, let me interrupt here. Let me interrupt here, which I really don't want to do, but we were coming up close to a time to take a break, and I'm talking to Robert Powell, who is the head of the MUFON Science Board and a MUFON investigator. We're talking about the Stephenville sightings, which I think I've dragged him off into the weeds on that. We will return shortly and finish that up and move on to other things. For those of you interested in other information about UFOs, be sure to check out my blog at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com, and we will be back.
It was a terrifying experience.
I thought we was going to go to jail for murder.
That day, we were a little behind, so we worked until it was starting to get dark.
We loaded up the equipment and hadn't driven very far when we caught glimmers of this glow coming through the trees. I urged Mike to hurry up and get up there.
Travis had the door open before we even stopped. As he got closer, I heard the sound.
One of the guys said, "You feel that?"
I really panicked then.
I told him, "Get the hell out of here."
It didn't come directly to me, it came to a deputy sheriff.
Three of us volunteered right away to tell him what had happened.
Sheriff Gillespie definitely didn't believe it.
He says that we better be certain because we can get in a lot of trouble.
When we went to search the next day, they split us up, and the whole time the deputies asked me, if you just tell us where the body is, we can all go home and get this over with.
We're talking about 100 people combing through the wooded area. Nothing turns up.
All week long, I've been hearing they're going to set it up to make you guys look guilty.
We're a rough-looking bunch then. Some of us have been in trouble with the law before.
And y'all ain't never going to come out of that jailhouse.
We couldn't get out.
I tried to sneak out the back door the day of the polygraph test. I was scared to death.
On top of that, you have media.
I literally would be on 2 telephones at the same time.
We've even got some coops in here now that's coming in and out to see the freak show, as they call it.
Everyone descends.
I just wasn't going to stand there and listen to it anymore.
Granny says, "This is Travis. I'm back. I need help."
When I did hear that he had been returned, it was almost as unbelievable as the original thing.
I just looked at my mom and says, "I told you we didn't kill him."
Travis Walton reappeared after several days with a bizarre story about a ride in an unidentified flying object.
People were desperate to explain it away.
Why are you sticking up for Travis for all this time? You know this really didn't happen.
What happened to Travis after we took off in that truck, I can't tell you.
I hated Travis for a long time after this. My whole world just tore up.
But I believe every word Travis said about it. He's never lied to me about nothing.
It's a net negative. We lost our jobs in the immediate aftermath.
And now you're not able to talk about it with anyone because you know that they're going to laugh at you, they're going to look at you like you're crazy.
But if you don't come out and tell your story, somebody else is going to tell it for you.
There's a degree of responsibility. Certainly I have to accept the bad. If I can direct what's happened in a way that I can make something good happen in the world, I'm looking for it.
Order your copy of Travis, The True Story of Travis Walton, today at www.traviswaltonthemovie.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money in abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
We are back with my guest, Robert Powell. We were talking about the Stephenville sightings, which he tells me could be an interview all to itself. The things that I found important here so far is we have jets, Air Force jet fighters, chasing UFOs. We have radar tracks, radar from several different sites, which suggest that the objects are real and not some kind of spurious phenomenon. And we have witnesses on the ground. So we have a case that involves multiple avenues of evidence, being the witnesses on the ground, instrumentality involving the radar sightings. We've got the jets in the air going on. So when we left, we had 2 jets, I think, chasing the lights. And you say there are other jets that came into the area afterwards. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, there's 10 jets total that we tracked from when they left Carswell until they returned to Carswell.
So they did come. So some of the jets did, in fact, come out of Carswell Air Force Base, Carswell Reserve Base, or whatever it's called.
All 10 jets that we tracked came from there.
Did Carswell have any response to their jets being involved in this?
In the very beginning, the communication officer that was first talked to by Angela Joyner indicated that they had no jets in the area. But about 2 weeks later, the Air Force went ahead and indicated that they had made a mistake and that they did have jets in the area. By that time, we had gotten the radar data, so we were able to verify them from that point. And later I was able to get Carswell to send me their logbooks on the flights for that day. So I have a copy of all their log flights.
So the logbooks said they were in that flight corridor around Crawfordsville, Texas at the time these objects were seen in the air. Is that correct?
Well, no, the flight books and the radar data show the jets moving along their standard corridor from the Dallas-Fort Worth area down to the military operating area, and then returning back to Carswell.
Were they claiming that these were regular training flights, or was it something else?
That's correct. These were regular training flights, and in analyzing the data, that we think that is true also, that these were regular training flights. We also picked up what we believe to be an AWAC that was flying as part of this training maneuver, because we picked up a aircraft without a transponder that was flying at about 40,000 feet in a figure-8 formation from basically into the middle of Oklahoma down to the center area of Texas. So it was covering a large area, and that's the only explanation we would have for an aircraft that would be doing something like that.
Were these 10 jets involved in intercepting the UFOs at all, or were they just in the area?
Eight of them were just in the area. However, there were 2 jets that had flown out of Carswell at around 6:45 p.m. up to Oklahoma. There's a military operating area west of Oklahoma City. They flew up there. They were doing their maneuvers. And then you see these jets fly not back to Carswell, but at 8 o'clock, they fly down to the Stephenville, Dublin area. They don't even fly into the military operating area in Texas, where the other 8 jets flew. These guys went straight south, flew over Dublin and Stephenville, right over the cities, and then headed back to the DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth area. So that really seemed strange to us as to why. It seemed very coincidental. So it almost seemed like someone contacted the 2 jets up in Oklahoma and said, hey, fly south, check out what's going on down there.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that jet fighters on an exercise were diverted to an active air defense mission. So that doesn't seem unreasonable to me either. Let's move on. And you are the, like I've said repeatedly, the leader of the Science Review Board, and you guys pick certain cases to investigate yourselves as they come into MUFON. How do you make that selection?
Okay, well, MUFON gets about 6,000 cases every year reported to them. Of those 6,000 cases, field investigators eliminate about 4,000, and that leaves 2,000 that field investigators indicate are still unidentified. So then we have a sub-team that meets every month, and this team basically reviews the top cases of the month, and then they take what they feel are the best cases and put them into a bucket, and at the end of the year, we have about 30 to 40, maybe 50 cases, which seems strong enough to send to the Science Review Board. So basically, in a nutshell, you take 6,000 cases and you boil them down to 30 or 40 cases, and those are what the Science Review Board reviews.
What sort of criterion? What sort of criterion do they have? I mean, we can assume that the field investigators determine that the 4,000 cases that were eliminated are natural phenomena. They're meteors, they're aircraft seen under unusual circumstances. There's logical, plausible, terrestrial explanations for them. So what makes the 50 cases, the 30 cases, 40 cases that you guys end up, what makes them special?
Okay, those are special because the sub-team felt that these cases were strong in 5 basic areas we look at. One is the number of witnesses. So we evaluate it from that aspect. We evaluate it from the aspect of is it daytime versus nighttime. We look at the aspect of how close is it to the witness. So that kind of weighs on how likely is it that they misidentified what they saw. The closer it is, the less likely of that. We also look at the strangeness of it. For example, we had a case a few years back where the witness described it as disc shape and falling like a leaf falls. The witness was only 30 years old, and that he would not have known that that is a very typical description from back in the 1940s and 50s when people saw disc-shaped objects. So that gave it a certain strangeness to it. The other thing we look at then, of course, is the quality of that field investigator's report. So it really doesn't matter if there was an actual UFO sighting, but if it was not properly investigated, then there's not much we can do with it. So when we're done, the Science Review Board identifies roughly 10 cases each year, and those 10 cases are types of cases that they believe can be defended as something in which there is no simple explanation.
So you now end up with your 10 cases. Now, I would assume that it's assigned to a specific member of the board, or do you all take a look at it? How does the investigation run from there?
Well, what we do is we actually take, let's say we had 30 cases from the sub-team. Those 30 cases are sent to the Science Review Board. Each member of the Science Review Board reads those cases and evaluates them in terms of their strength on a scale of 1 to 5. And then what I do is I take all of those evaluations and I do some statistics on it, and based on how that comes out, I identify which are the strongest cases, and those become our top cases for the year.
Is one member assigned to investigate it, or from that point on, or are you working just off the information that was provided by the field investigator?
We work basically off the information provided by the field investigator, with the caveat that we do contact that field investigator, tell them that we are evaluating his case, and we may make suggestions for him to go back to the witness and get additional information or do additional work. So we do ask that additional work be done at times.
But you yourself don't call the witnesses or don't search for documentation and that sort of thing?
Not normally. On occasion we have, but normally we don't do that.
The field investigators respond, I suppose, in a lively manner to this. They're ready to go and gather additional information at your request?
Well, on that, Kevin, it's like everybody, right, that you deal with in life. Some people react, promptly and get excited. Then you have others that are on the opposite end of that.
Meaning they don't like to be questioned, or they figure you have everything that you need to make an evaluation?
Sometimes it might be that they don't need to be questioned. They don't like to be questioned. Sometimes it may be that they're so busy with other aspects of their life they don't have time to do additional work. There can be a variety of different reasons.
At that point, do you then make, not you personally, but does the board then make some inquiries on their own?
Yes. If we have a really strong case, then we will just go ahead and finalize the investigation on it. If we feel that we really need to, that someone really needs to step in to finalize the investigation.
Well, I noticed that you yourself has participated in something like 200 field investigations over your career there with MUFON. Is that close to the right number?
Yeah, that's pretty close. At least that many, if not more.
So you have a pretty good idea of what you're looking for when you get into one of these cases. If you need to get in one of these cases, you have an idea of how to proceed in the field.
Right.
Okay. So we've got those cases. You finalize that report, and then you submit it to MUFON, or do you publish it, or what do you do with it then?
Well, at that point, what we do, once we have identified those cases, at our annual symposium, we release that to the press and give them a list of the cases, and we put a very short summary because, as you know, the press doesn't really deal with anything more than 5 or 6 sentences long. So we don't give them the whole case, but we do have the entire case available afterwards, usually 2 or 3 months after the symposium. What we have to do is we take the full case that's been written and we remove all personal information out of the case. And then once we've done that, then we place it on the MUFON website. So currently today, the cases from 2012 through 2014 exist on the MUFON website, and this year we'll be talking about the 2015 cases, and those will go on the website probably sometime in October or November.
Okay, well, we've got to take a quick break here. I'm talking to Robert Powell, who is the leader of the MUFON Science Review Board and who has investigated many cases himself, as one of the co-authors of UFOs and Government, a historical inquiry. And I have a book that just came out that deals with the Roswell case, and I know a lot of people are tired of that, but it's Roswell in the 21st Century, and you can find that at Amazon.com. You can find it at Barnes & Noble, so it's available out there now to give you an idea of what was going on in Roswell. We'll be back shortly.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge, breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randle, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who would like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
What happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
We are back with Robert Powell, who I've promised would talk to you about some of the best cases of 2015, 2016. And since we have very little time left, we're going to do that right now. Robert, what do you think is the best case that you received in the last 2 years?
Well, the very best case, actually, in the last 5 years, is one of the cases that made our top 6 for this year. And that case is out of Canada. It actually occurred in August of 2013 in Ontario. And this is basically a case where you have 3 witnesses. So we've got multiple witnesses. The object comes within 400 feet. That's a very big plus in terms of making a strong case. And probably the strongest part about this case is that the primary witness is a scientist who has his own research and development facility. He has 5 engineers that work for him, and he also has Department of Defense contracts, and he has over 40 patents. I've actually met with this witness in person. I visited his research facility, and I have also been at a defense contractor plant where they manufacture some of the product that he has designed. So we have
you're talking about a highly credible witness, a well-educated man who knows what he's looking at in the sky.
Yes, this is probably the most credible witness that I have ever run into, because basically you've got a scientist who observed an object for almost 5 minutes along with 2 other witnesses. And this guy, because I have visited his location and everything, he doesn't need money. He doesn't need anything. He has no motivation as to why he would want to talk about investigation of a UFO case.
Well, let's move right now. I'm looking at a photograph, which I assume it's a sort of a dumbbell-shaped object. It's flat on the top and the bottom, gray-shaped. So he saw an object as opposed to lights.
Exactly. He saw and see, that's a strangeness factor that makes you believe more of the case. It's like, if these 3 guys were going to make this up, why wouldn't it have been a disc or a triangle? Instead, he comes up, he describes an object that there are very few of these ever reported. Basically, it's like you took 2 discs and put a bar in between them. And this object, he viewed for almost 5 minutes, most of the time, through a 5x9 Nikon scope that was on his rifle, because these guys had been out hunting black bear, and his camera would not work, his cell phone would not work, the radio broadcasting, they had one of these field radios, it actually fried. Surprisingly, their truck was not affected. The electronics of the truck was not affected.
Well, you said they're out. You said they're out hunting, and the question I have to ask is, did they take a shot at it?
You know what? That is a good question, Kevin. And I'll tell you what. When the primary witness, who's the scientist, takes his gun out and he's got it and he's looking at the object, the other one of the other hunters in the truck with him, that's the first thing he says: "Shoot it." And the guy who's the scientist goes, "No, we're not going to shoot something we don't even know what it is."
And start the interplanetary war. Start the interplanetary war? Okay. So they didn't take a shot at it. What all did they see?
Well, what he saw was he saw sufficient detail, and because he had a particular scope and knew how much of his scope the object filled up, he was able to calculate the exact dimensions of the object. And I double-checked what he did, and I got basically very similar numbers. So this basically was an object that was 170 feet across, and it was, if I remember correctly, it's around 40 to 50 feet wide. The interesting thing about this is there was a plasma around the entire object. He believes that's what caused his cameras to malfunction. And that, because of that, something interesting happened. Is the object move away from him later on, he was able to determine that he was able to actually grab his camera, turn it back on, and this time his camera stayed on for about, I'm trying to remember the exact amount of time, I think it was around 45 seconds to a minute. His camera stays on, but it doesn't capture any video. It only captures audio. So you can hear their voices and you can hear them talking, and at one point you can actually kind of see the primary witness move his arm pointing towards the object. So he still has his camera. He has it locked in a safe. When I went and visited him, he took his camera out and he showed me some work he had done with an oscilloscope. So he hooked it up to his oscilloscope so that we could basically see what type of electrical signals were picked up on the oscilloscope when he connected it to his camera. And there were repetitive signals about every 0.45 seconds that were being emitted from this object.
So what we have is basically a case with multiple witnesses have an opportunity to see the object not only with their eyes, but through a 9-power scope on his rifle. You have the object interacting with the environment, where you say it sort of fried the radios and that sort of thing. And you do have some sort of electronic signal that you pick up on the oscilloscope. So there's really no natural phenomena that would explain this case.
No, there's no, I mean, I love these kind of cases, Kevin. There's only two possibilities. Either one, this happened, or number two, this gentleman and two other witnesses decided to make a story up. And I cannot come up with any motivation for a guy in the position this guy is in, with his corporation and his defense contract work, as to why he would make up a story like that.
Well, you obviously know who it is, but you have not published his name, and he's not seeking publicity in any way, is he?
That's correct. He does not want his name released.
Which, if somebody is creating a hoax, they usually want some sort of payoff of the hoax, which is they get their face on TV or they get their names in the newspaper, and this guy is staying in the background to avoid that.
And I see no indication of a hoax. Plus, a guy who's hoaxing will not allow you to come to his home and his place of business.
And of course, you've talked to the other two witnesses that were involved in the case?
We talked to one of the other two witnesses. The third witness is not willing to talk about the case. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He basically just wants to forget it.
So your conclusion, and if I'm putting words in your mouth, please stop me. Your conclusion is this was some sort of an extraterrestrial event?
I don't know if it's extraterrestrial. My conclusion is it's not, well, I guess you could say extraterrestrial, but that doesn't mean necessarily from the stars, right? All I can say is I don't believe this was manufactured on the Earth.
And you mean it could be interdimensional, or when you say not manufactured on the Earth, could you expand on that a little bit?
All I can say is that we don't have the capabilities of making such a craft, and as to what its origin is, there's no way for me to know. I mean, I can't know where it came from.
Obviously, it said something like U.S. Air Force on the bottom. Does this look like objects that have been reported in the past? Because this is a fairly strange-looking object. Does it fit with things? Does it fit with things we've seen in the past or people have reported in the past?
I actually researched that, and I was only able to find 3 other cases where someone reported an object with this type of shape in the past.
Recently, or they go back deep into the UFO history?
Deep into the UFO history. Nothing recent similar to this I wasn't able to find.
So we've got an object basically that does not fit the normal patterns that we talk about, the disc-shaped craft, the cigar-shaped craft, that sort of thing, or the triangles that have become very prevalent in the last 2 decades. We have something that is extremely unusual, observed by highly trained individuals over a long period of time. So there really is no good, solid explanation for what they saw.
Correct. One other thing that really that the witness was really mesmerized by, that there was absolutely no sign anywhere of any type of bolt or seam. He said it was just like someone had created this with one of these, I forget the term on the modern type printers, where they basically use a resin to create, for
a 3D
example,
printer. A 3D printer.
3D. He said it looked like someone had a gigantic 3D printer and created this thing.
Well, Robert, we're out of time, and I'm sorry because we were just getting into the really good stuff, thanks to me. I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to appear with us. Would you be willing to come back?
Sure. I would be glad to talk with you again, Kevin.
Okay, maybe we can examine some of the other cases that I managed to avoid. This is Kevin Randle. I am signing off now from A Different Perspective. For those of you interested in other UFO information, look at my blog, www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com, and take a look at Roswell in the 21st Century, which gives you a good, dispassionate look at the Roswell case. Thank you for listening.